The 2012 movie is a top-notch work when it comes to the disaster film series, recalling that year when this movie debuted. In addition to the exact Maya prophecy about the apocalypse on December 21, 2012, it was really a bewildered generation. This not only sparked a wave of hoarding food and drinking water among some people, there were even extremists thinking that they did not need to pay their debts anymore, withdrawing credit to spend comfortably. Although currently 13 years have passed since 2012, the apocalyptic prophecy seems to have become a joke, but there are some people who are determined to believe that the 2012 apocalypse has really happened and human society has been reestablished. Because since 2012, many people feel the flow of time seems faster than before. Surely, there are also some young people of the 10X generation who have never seen this legendary disaster movie. We are not long anymore, but always. The story began in 2009. American geological researcher Adrian Helmsley suddenly received an emergency call from his Indian friend. It was not until Adrian and his friend went to the field more than 3,000 meters underground that he realized the seriousness of the problem. Because just 2 days earlier, the biggest solar storm in human history had exploded without showing warning signs. As a result, the number and activities of neutrino particles on Earth are abnormal and lead to a series of scary physical chain reactions. The Earth is constantly heating up. It is like the principle of operation of a microwave. Right that night, Adrian boarded the plane back to the United States and immediately reported the incident to a higher level. Half a year later, the US president convened the G8 conference. First, he announced this danger to leaders around the world. Next, he revealed that according to the research of the best geologists, this global disaster is expected to occur in late 2012. In response to this disaster, all countries need to join hands to contribute financial and human resources to implement a secret rescue plan, the Noah's Ark project. This huge construction mission was of course given to an eastern country known for speed and capability. The specific location is located in the Tibetan Hills. Based on the special geographical advantage of Tibet, under the cover of a hydropower dam construction project, but in fact, within the next 2 years, they would secretly build 9 giant ships, each able to accommodate hundreds of thousands of people. During this time, countless valuable cultural heritage artworks in the world were secretly collected by the government. The real treasures, transported to the geologically stable area, and also the last hope of human civilization, is Tibet. At the same time, the billionaires and the elite in the world also received an invitation to buy a ticket, a boarding pass worth 1 billion euros. However, after understanding the true meaning of this ticket, they only obediently paid up. Time quickly drifted until 2012. Maya civilization said that every 600,000 years, the sun releases a wave of destructive energy, deleting the civilization on Earth. December 21, 2012 is the beginning of a new cycle. Surprisingly, the prophecy of the Maya coincided with the observations of science. Although the news of the end of the world has made the public bewildered, because the governments control the information closely, most people only see this as an unfounded rumor. Originally, a failed writer like Jackson Curtis did not believe in this unrealistic apocalypse. Until he drove to his ex-wife's house and took the 2 children to Yellowstone Park, he discovered something unusual. Yellowstone Park, a place that was always open, was now blocked off. After the children climbed over the fence, Jackson discovered a more bizarre scene. The lake that used to be abundant in Yellowstone is now completely dry. Around it were warning signs that turned this place into a banned area. Before he could understand what was happening, a group of army soldiers suddenly appeared and led them to an isolation area. Here, Jackson met geologist Adrian Helmsley. But the strange thing is that Adrian seemed to recognize him immediately. Wait a minute, let me remember. It's not that he is Jackson Curtis, the author of Farewell Atlantis, right? Jackson did not expect that his book, which only sold 500 copies, would meet a reader here. As a book fan, Adrian did not make things difficult for Jackson. Instead, he allowed Jackson and his 2 children to roam around nearby for a few days. But soon, Adrian received news from his Indian friend. Because the Earth's core temperature is increasing rapidly in a short time, the planet's magnetic field weakens by up to 80%. The Earth's first affected areas are supervolcanoes like Yellowstone. This means they are like standing on a barrel of gunpowder that can explode at any time. After receiving the news, Adrian immediately ordered the army to withdraw. But he completely forgot Jackson and the 2 children were still in the forest. However, seeing the flying helicopters and the sky plus Yellowstone being blocked off also made Jackson immediately feel something unusual. At that moment, Jackson suddenly noticed a nearby car. Inside, there was a man excitedly talking on the radio, revealing the truth about the upcoming end of the world. This made Jackson so curious that he immediately approached the man to talk. That person, named Charlie, is a passionate follower of the Maya apocalypse prophecy. Charlie took 2 cans of Pabst Blue Ribbon beer from the refrigerator. Just as he poured one out to invite Jackson to chat, Jackson sipped the cool beer while watching the documentary about the end of the world Charlie made himself. Our sun will release a massive amount of radiation, causing the core of the Earth to melt from the inside like an orange. As for the planet's crust, it's free-floating. Humans will know the scary power of Mother Nature. It will end the world on the winter solstice. December 21, 2012, Charlie said excitedly, referring to the upcoming end of the world. He opened the refrigerator to grab another Pabst Blue Ribbon beer can. Only this beer could help him calm down. Charlie told Jackson that the elite and powerful people secretly built Noah's arks to preserve human life. Based on his connections, Charlie has obtained a map accurately marking the location of the arks. People are manufacturing spacecraft, dear. Mom, I have to go. Jackson, of course, only sees Charlie as a paranoid. But even so, those crazy words still planted a seed of doubt in his heart. Charlie also confirmed that the powerful have bought tickets. Ordinary people like them have no chance to board. Get them away from Yellowstone. This place is about to become hell. Meanwhile, at the summit of the nations. After 2 days of observation, the Earth's core temperature has hit dangerous thresholds, and the Earth's magnetic field is also decreasing exponentially. Now they can confirm that the end of the world will start today. Although there are only 4 arks ready now, they are forced to start the plan earlier than expected. At the same time, all the billionaires who bought tickets were also notified to board immediately. As for ordinary people who know nothing, Jackson has just taken his children to his ex-wife's house. At this time, he suddenly received a call from his rich boss, Yuri. His voice was panicked. Jackson immediately drove his 2 children to the airport. But when Jackson had just brought the 2 children to the place, Yuri's next sentence shocked him. Safely went. The 2 guys were overwhelmed. He kept laughing, but we had tickets for the big train. We go, and you will be left behind. At that moment, on the radio, Charlie's voice rang again with prophecies about the end of the world. Then, suddenly, the ground moved violently. Giant cracks began to appear. All of these signs finally made Jackson realize the severity of the problem. But he did not panic. Instead, he immediately ran to the aircraft hangar and used a branded watch to rent a plane and pilot. After that, he drove non-stop home. In less than 10 minutes, the intensity of the earthquake increased drastically. While his ex-wife and her family were afraid, hiding under the table, Jackson promptly arrived. Unexpectedly, when they just ran out of the house, the entire house collapsed. Jackson could not think much, immediately drove everyone away. This was clearly an unprecedented, terrible earthquake. The ground began to crack everywhere. The buildings along the way collapsed like the domino effect. All trees on the road were uprooted. Everyone around fled. Avoid the way. Go away. Let it go. Young people are weird. Hurry up. Old woman, be careful on the sidewalk. Be careful. Oh my God, this is too horrible. Jackson tried to drive up the highway to the airport, but then an incident happened. The bridge collapsed. Cars crashed everywhere. No, Dad, be careful, Dad. Jackson then drove into a collapsing building. His car wriggled like a hammock to dodge all the debris perfectly. Fortunately, the car finally rushed out of the building. When Jackson's group very difficultly reached the airport, he panicked to discover that the pilot he hired was hit by bricks and stones on the spot. Fortunately, his ex-wife's boyfriend Gordon had learned to fly a few months prior. At this time, they could only bet with fate. It was just when they had just boarded the plane, the giant cracks on the ground immediately spread like a spider web. Gordon, go quickly, drive quickly. Gordon trembled, sweating, trying to remember the little flight lessons he had learned. Outside, the ground fiercely shook everything down. It quickly turned the whole city into a wasteland. The plane shook violently as it left the runway. Behind it, the runway shattered as soon as the plane wheels had just lifted off, forming a bottomless abyss as if to swallow it all. Gordon panicked, adjusting height. Suddenly, fragments of a collapsing high-rise building appeared right before their eyes. Everyone sitting in the plane shouted in horror. The plane seemed to be about to fall. They were defeated at this moment. All held their breath, praying for the plane to take off successfully. When the plane reached a certain height, Jackson and everyone witnessed a scene hard to forget. The whole giant continental plate broke and then sank into the deep ocean. This was no longer a normal earthquake, but the movement of the continental plates because the Earth's core is heating up. The plane quickly landed near Yellowstone Park. Jackson understood that this was definitely a global disaster. Only finding Charlie, or more accurately, finding the map to the ark's location that Charlie recorded, offered hope of helping him and his children survive. At this time, Charlie was standing on a hill, eagerly continuing to broadcast about the apocalypse on the radio. When Jackson found him, from the distant mountains suddenly sounded strange noises. Little birds kept flying away frantically. Jackson hurriedly grabbed Charlie to ask for the map. He had no time to hear Charlie's lectures. Charlie just said the map was in his car, when immediately a shocking sound rang out from the mountains, like a giant monster waking up after millions of years of sleep. You definitely don't want to go with me. So beautiful. I will stay. As a follower of the apocalypse, Charlie chose to stay and meet his departure. Jackson immediately grabbed the map from the car and ran towards the plane. But in that moment, the monster's eyes were completely awakened. Charlie was extremely excited to see this. "Daddy, what is that?" Nothing. It exploded like an artificial sun. Its destructive power is equivalent to thousands, even tens of thousands of Hiroshima atomic bombs exploded at the same time. I wish people could see what I was seeing. I wish everyone could be here with me. Honey, keep going. Everyone remember, please hear Charlie first. Numerous hot fragments of rock fell like rain. Jackson drove the mobile car left and right. Although he devoted all his skill to driving, they were still hit by a large fragment. Daddy, we are burning! No, Dad! Fortunately, before the ground completely collapsed, Jackson finally held the map and climbed onto the plane. But before the group was happy, Jackson discovered that the location of the Ark was far away in Tibet. Obviously, this small aircraft could not fly that far. They needed to find a larger plane. After witnessing apocalyptic scenes throughout the journey, the aircraft finally landed at Las Vegas Airport. The crowds of people trying to flee made this place chaotic at the end. The US president finally went on television to address the nation. He confirmed that their world really was ending. Super earthquakes passed. A tsunami will wipe out the entire American country. However, as the president, he decided not to leave. This terrible news made people fall into extreme panic. In the chaotic crowd, Jackson suddenly saw his rich boss, Yuri Kopov. Yuri's own pilot had found a large aircraft. But to take off, they needed an additional pilot to support the controls. Gordon is a pilot. Where? What to do? That's right. Good pilot. Let's go. Okay, let's go. So quickly. Due to the dense volcanic dust, all commercial flights had been paused. But when Jackson and the group ran to the airport, they were immediately stunned in front of a giant plane. This huge aircraft is the Antonov 500, taking the prototype from the Antonov An-225. The world's largest transport aircraft was once located in Kiev, Ukraine. Now it had become their apocalyptic flight. At the end of the runway, it began to collapse. Gordon, who had absolutely no experience driving a large aircraft, faced the captain's guidance. But as it left the ground, the plane nearly fell into a huge crack at the end of the runway. The plane crashed through the famous Wynn Hotel in Las Vegas. Then it continued to wriggle through Caesar's Palace and Bellagio before finally taking off successfully into the sky. At this point, both the captain and Gordon were breathing heavily. Now we will fly to China. However, when flying over the Hawaiian Islands, the mood of the whole group fell to the bottom. Before their eyes was an archipelago in flames. Lava from volcanoes flowed everywhere. The travel paradise of blue sunshine had now turned into hell on earth. Meanwhile, at the White House, the US president was about to witness the most feared moment of his life. After a strong shock, the Washington Monument collapsed right before his eyes. When he struggled to crawl out of the rubble, a more horrific scene appeared. The USS John F. Kennedy, anchored offshore, was swept into the mainland by a tsunami. The giant ship rushed towards the White House. In St. Peter's Square, thousands of religious believers from around the world gathered here. They did not choose to flee, but prayed with the Pope that God would forgive humanity. However, these sincere prayers could not prevent the disaster. Before the horrific eyes of everyone, St. Peter's Basilica completely collapsed. Everyone ran away. Meanwhile, due to fuel running low, Jackson's group was forced to attempt a landing over the South China Sea. They were worried that this would be a fatal decision, but the captain quickly realized that below was not an ocean. They were right over the snowy mountains of Tibet. It turned out that due to the movement of the continental plates, the entire Asian landmass was pushed to the southeast by about 2,000 kilometers. The good news was that they were very close to the location of the Ark, but the bad news was that the last two of the aircraft's engines had stopped working, so they were forced to land on a glacier. The captain asked people to quickly parachute to escape, and he would stay to control the aircraft. "Don't worry about me. I have to land it. What are you standing there for? Go quickly." The others quickly got into the luxury cars in the aircraft cargo compartment. When the plane bounced on impact, the cars rushed out of the compartment with the people landing dangerously. The plane was still skidding and couldn't be controlled. The captain finally could not escape the plane's end. Yuri's young girlfriend cried miserably. At this moment, from afar suddenly sounded the sound of helicopters. It turned out that an Eastern nation's army was transporting a large number of animals from around the world to the plateau base. One of the rescue helicopters discovered them and immediately changed direction. Jackson thought that he and his family were finally saved, but unfortunately, they did not have tickets to board. In the end, only Yuri and his two sons were allowed onto the rescue helicopter. Even Yuri's girlfriend was abandoned because Yuri had long known she cheated on him. "The head of the wool is back and forth behind him," he said. But the sky was not merciful for anyone. While wandering in the snow, Jackson's group saw car lights from afar. Jackson rushed to throw stones to attract the attention of a pickup truck that stopped. Although they did not understand each other's languages, the old lady in the passenger seat decided to let them hitchhike. What surprised Jackson was that their destination was the Ark. Because her eldest grandson was a welder at the Ark base, he knew of a ventilation shaft they could sneak inside through. Because Jackson's group had 2 children, after being convinced by the old lady, the eldest grandson agreed to help them enter the Ark. Meanwhile, Adrian and a White House survival official had been on the 4th Ark. He received a goodbye call from his Indian friend. It turned out that the world really was ending. That the rescue helicopter Adrian sent never came for his family. The Indian geologist, the first person to discover the disaster, could not escape the grim fate. At this time, a giant tsunami was flooding through the Himalayas. Despite being abandoned by the US government, before he died, he still called Adrian, "Goodbye, my friend, namaste." Adrian suppressed the pain and anger and immediately calculated the tsunami timing. Finally, he calculated that there was only half an hour left before a tsunami would come from the other side of the Himalayas. The Ark would face this huge wave. After careful consideration, the leaders decided to launch the Arks immediately. Those who had not boarded would be left behind. At this time, Yuri and those still trapped at the base were preparing to board Ark 4 when they realized something unusual. "They left us here." Yuri immediately led his 2 sons and the people running towards Ark number 4, but due to the overwhelming crowd and moving speed, many people stumbled and fell into the abyss. The crowd behind pushed increasingly fiercely. Yuri hurriedly led his 2 sons down onto the Ark's deck, so they were lucky to avoid the risk of falling. At the same time, Jackson's group was led by the old lady's grandson, Nima, who secretly sneaked into the Ark via a ventilation pipe. This scene was accidentally seen by Yuri and his 2 sons. Yuri's ex-girlfriend also raised her hands to signal to him. From the control room, Adrian witnessed the scene of those who were pushed into the abyss without being able to do anything. This tragic scene finally made him unable to bear the condemnation of his conscience. He ordered the activation of the entire ship's communication system. Adrian seriously told the world leaders that their actions now were no different from directing death to the people out there. This is not civilized nor humanity. If this is the way they start a new future, how would they explain it to posterity? The sincere persuasion of Adrian woke up the leaders. Finally, they agreed to open the Ark door. "This is a schoolboat. In a moment we will open the door for everyone to board." But when the door of the Ark opened, Yuri and his 2 sons were still stuck on the deck floor and could not climb up. When the last people ran inside, the door of the Ark was also about to close. Yuri now tried to climb with his son. Seeing the door that was about to close, as a father, Yuri used his last strength to lift his youngest son onto the Ark. Luckily, both his children were successful. At the same time, the turbulent tsunami, tens of thousands of feet high, crashed through the Himalayas. Inside the Patala Palace on the mountain, the Rinpoche silently watched the water flow through the mountains. He calmly rang the last bell, symbolizing the bell's farewell to human civilization. Only a few minutes remained before floodwater would submerge the Ark base. But at this time, the door of Ark 4 had an incident and could not close. It turned out that when the door was closing, Jackson's group crashed into the gear area that was booting up. The cable they used to climb in accidentally got trapped in the gear's hydraulic system, and Gordon was also crushed in this accident. The situation became more serious when floodwater started pouring into the chamber through the unclosed door. The pressure from the water made the crowd chaotic. But the biggest danger was still ahead. Due to the terrible power of the tsunami, Ark number 4 was pushed from the launch pad and fell into the sea. Because of the door incident, the Ark's engines could not start normally. The giant ship, out of control, was rushing towards the top of Everest. In a life-and-death moment, Adrian finally discovered Jackson's group through the monitoring screen. He also realized the reason why the door was stuck, but now there was no time to blame anyone. Through the emergency speaker, Adrian radioed Jackson, who quickly understood they had to remove the cable trapped in the gear. Knowing his group had caused the problem, Jackson decided to risk diving to the flooded gear area to remove the cable. The entire control room held its breath watching Jackson's actions. At that moment, the ship collided with an iceberg. The huge collision jerked the cable in Jackson's hand free from the gear. The gear immediately operated, pulling the door shut. The chamber was finally sealed. The captain immediately ordered the engine started and backed up at full speed. And then, in the nick of time, they avoided the collision with the mountain range. Inside, the crowded crowd broke into applause. More than a month later, survivors stood on the deck breathing the fresh air. The sun gradually appeared on the horizon as a signal to the rebirth of human civilization. Now, due to the movement of the continental plates, all continents on Earth have combined into a new supercontinent. And from this moment, human history officially entered a new period. Thank you for watching the video. If you found it interesting, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and watch my other videos. See you again.